action. A 40-minute race set to have a whole lot of stuff to worry about if you are these racers. Have to worry about the pit stop. Inside your screen, switched his attention to the massive pack of race cars that's going to blow his doors off and blow off the starter stand. The green flags and the drivers are on their way. Locked for at this race, the grass and the gravel that lines this racetrack. It's old school, so it doesn't have a whole lot of asphalt runoff area. He's a very talented racer of his own. These two fast. These drives very early on into this race. Look at Danny Wood at a big crash heading through turn number 1. That's chasing that turn number 4. And here we go, side by side racing off into the corner. This can usually end in tears. One of these drivers is going to have to back out of it. That's going to be Adela. But Maunz still allowing some room coming out of the corner. The side by side going up the hill through turn number 6. Spade coming out of the corner. Walker the Canadian in the number 96. They are banging doors, heading into the braking zone for the final time. They're linked together. That or you put a qualifying fuel load in either way. Getting a whole lot of pressure side by side with himself, and that is
now coming out of the pits. Let's see what his pit lane time is, because this is going to be very important when Yanchi wins.
I don't know what to say. Oh, there's Brett Cathcart upside down. And another driver coming in. That's Jeff Jacobson upside down. Oh, boy. Well, hello and happy Easter, everybody. Welcome back to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome back to the Spec Racer Forward Weekend Warriors. This is round number 5 of this season, coming to you today from Okayama. My name is Ron Maunz. Alongside me in the commentary booth is Charles Boshell. Guido Marzucchi is our producer for today's broadcast. Here again for another Spec Racer Forward race, this time at a much different racetrack than Long Beach 1 week ago. Okayama is a staple of iRacing. Just about everyone has run around here at some point, and just about everyone has their fair share of good, bad, and horrendous memories from running around here. Charles, I have my fair share of interesting memories, some of which I may be sharing to my own embarrassment during this show. We're also just expecting to have some fun here today.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the spec racers always make for good racing. It doesn't matter where we go. This obviously much more draft dependent track. I think we're going to see some good drafting. There's lots of good opportunities for late braking and passing, especially when you get down the bottom of the circuit to the hairpin. As we've seen, we talked about before the broadcast, they've already brought like half the gravel traps out onto the edges of the track. So I think that'll be part of it as well, as everybody's trying to just extend the track limits and see what they can get away with. So I think that's going to bring some of that debris on, and that's going to make for some interesting braking maneuvers that may occur during the race. So it'll be something we'll have to keep an eye on. Yeah, looking forward to it. Obviously, everybody's probably driven Okayama at least once. I've had my fair share of tumbles here specifically in the MX-5, but like I said, it's a big track and it makes for some really good racing. So it's gonna be a fun event for sure.
Oh, it is going to be a heck of a lot of fun, and this season has been really enjoyable up to this point in time. Already four races in our rearview mirror at some very different racetracks: Lebanon, Magny-Cours, Spa, and Long Beach. The 4 races up to this point, and we've had some rather interesting developments thus far. 4 different winners in Spec 1. In Spec 2, it's been the story of Eric Luca and Masters. It's been a rather compelling class there. So I think with all that said, as we still have some time left to go in this qualifying session, we may load up those championship points. I don't know why I pronounced load that way, but we're going to load up those championship points and have a gander as to how things have been shaking out thus far this season. We'll note Elias Pleva, your current provisional pole sitter, practically nothing between himself and Maurizio Nazelli in P2, so that's how it's looking on the front row at the present moment. I think when it comes to the other points, if we can get those loaded up here in a few moments, we'll start off with Spec 1. And I mentioned how Spec 1 has had 4 separate winners thus far this season. Maurizio Nazelli won at Lebanon. At Magny Coros, Felix Samoa is grabbing the checkered flag. Spa saw Jason Green and Marco Pinero won at Long Beach last week. So let's start with the Spec 1 point standings and see how things are shaking up in that class, which has been very hard to pin the tail on. Jason Green, though, he's been the consistent force as usual, already has a win thus far this season. And the thing is, when it comes to Jason Green, through all the smoke and turmoil that may come out of a very hectic season, Jason will always be that consistent force, and certainly proving that 355 points on the board. That is a pretty significant gap to himself and Maurizio Nazelli. Dan Witzak actually in front of his teammate of Felix Samoas, with Rasmus Vori rounding out your top 5 in the Spec 1 point standings. That's very interesting from Samoas. Not the start that he wanted in his title defense. In Spec 2, though, we have a tie between Eric Luke and Matt Thompson. Luke did not compete in the first round of this championship, but ever since then, he's been on a pretty good tear off the back of 3 straight poles and 3 straight wins in Spec 2, but with some good consistency. Matt Thompson is tied with him. 232 points is what those 2 drivers hold on to at the present moment. Ada Allen on 177 slotted in 3rd. Andrew Love 4 points back in P4, with Leonard Geese rounding out your top 5 in Spec 2. And now here's how it's looking in Masters. Kurt Nunez, your current championship leader, he's won the 1st and 4th races of this season at Lebanon and Long Beach. Unfortunately for him, we don't have any more racetracks that we'll be visiting thus far this season that start with the letter L, so Nunez looking to hold on to that championship lead for as long as he can. Tom Gradwell currently slotted in P2, Joseph Tarantino, Brad Cathcart, Jim Brewster rounding out your top 5 in the Masters class. So that's how it looks like in the championship points. Spec 2, ever the close class, tied at the front.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very, very tight at the top of the Spec 2 class. And, it's still, we're not quite to the halfway point. So there's still a lot that can change in these championship standings. Get a driver, goes on a run, clicks off 2 or 3 wins in a row. And the next thing you know, the championship tables have turned. So, this is another race, I think, as we've seen and said over and over again, is consistency is the key. You want to try and get as much as points, high points every week in and week out. Top 5s will get you a championship. You don't have to win everything as we're in order to get the championship, as we're about 4.5 minutes left in qualifying, with Alice Pleva currently sitting on pole. Naselli only about 1/100th of a second behind. So as you can see, 1/10th of a second separating the top 4. So it's going to be one of those races where we're going to have a big battle up front.
And as we are still in this qualifying session, we're doing a nice little onboard lap with Eric Luke, the sponsor of today's broadcast, getting a wonderful view of this track. I've mentioned how it's an iRacing staple. Everyone has run around here at some point in time. In fact, I think I've shared this every single time I've done an Okayama broadcast. Before I actually did my first ever show back in March of 2023, I was getting a grips to the other wonderful graphic software and live timing software that we have here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, and it was a Mazda Cup race here at Okayama that was the host of me trying to figure out how everything worked to get into broadcasting. And then a couple of days later, had my first ever show. And now in the 2 years since, the drivers and the fans of the Weekend Warriors are stuck listening to my voice every single week, multiple times a week. Earplugs are a wonderful thing, but we were actually talking before the start of this broadcast about this rather historic circuit. You think of Okayama, you obviously think about its significance on the iRacing platform, but it's a pretty fun track. This not open for terribly long. Was opened back on November 18th of 1990, and the first ever event here was actually a kind of, I'm trying to think of the best way I could describe it. bit of a photo op event in an interesting way. Many British racing drivers were invited to actually bring rich businessmen around the track for some good laps, because there are bits and bobs that he can buy. Kind of original start of like what's I guess now considered a motorsports country club. Tracks like VIR from my personal backyard, NJMP New Jersey Motorsports Park in Millville, where you can buy some condos on the same facility. Had the same sort of thing going on here, and to get a good idea as to what the track was, there were some drivers who were giving some small little guided laps around here many moons ago, and that is part of the reason why certain parts of this racetrack are rather odd names, considering the actual location of this circuit. Williams Turn 2, the Moss S, named after Sterling Moss, Revolver, Piper, Redmond, Mike Knight Corner, Last Corner, Turn 11, and First Corner, Turn 1. So always nice to have some good corner names to talk about, doubly so when there's a rather fun story behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we were talking about it, and Guido impressed me with his knowledge of this track. He said, they ran 2 F1 races here in the, was it the mid 90s? Michael Schumacher won both of them, but they didn't keep coming to this track. They went back to either Fuji or Suzuka, because it's just out in the middle of nowhere. There's just no facilities around other than the track. The track is out by itself. Which I guess makes it easier. You don't have noise complaints constantly, unlike places like Laguna Seca, where people move to complain. They move closer to the track so they can complain about the track noise. Here, this is just out in the middle of nowhere, and I always think that this track, at least when we come here to do broadcasts, the one thing that sticks out with me is the track temp. It's always hot here for whatever reason. It seems like that I think we were looking, the track temp was 101 or something like that Fahrenheit. So makes it for a little more of a challenge for these spec racers, because obviously mechanical grip for these cars is very important, and you get a slick track, and it makes it that much more difficult to get the car around the corners the way you want it to.
As we are still following these drivers in this qualifying session, I want to talk about the history of this venue a little bit more. Mention how it was a host of the Formula One Pacific Grand Prix back in 1994 and 1995. Interestingly enough, they were meant to change venues for 1996 and hosted at the Sentul circuit in Indonesia. But unfortunately, the race never really materialized, and I believe for the 1997 season, it was replaced with an event at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, which for a time was known as the Luxembourg Grand Prix. Looking through the history of some interestingly named Formula One events, and another interesting one in the form of the Pacific Grand Prix. 2 times it hosted Formula One, but many moons beforehand, back in the early 60s, from 1960 to 1963, there's a Pacific Grand Prix held at Laguna Seca, of all places. Before the corkscrew that we know today was even really close to what it is now. It's basically an odd, tight hairpin with a big downhill drop on corner exit. Interestingly, looking through the motorsports history, albeit it's coming from me. I'm definitely a little bit biased in that regard. Getting to the end of this qualifying session, though, Felix Samoas and Elias Pleva still on your provisional pole, but these drivers always like to set in the barn burners of lap times right towards the end. Here's Stevie Ray, who we had a chat with right at the end of that Formula 4 broadcast earlier on, crosses the line. Will not be an improvement from him, still slotted in 29th as it stands presently. Samoas Pleva is still on your front row. Jeff Fritscher set to start from the pole in the Masters category, 9th overall, with Leonard Geese and Eric Luke making up the front 2 in Spec 2. The Geese, currently your Spec 2 pole sitter, rounding out your top 10. That's a honking performance from him.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, great run by Geese. And once again, looking, we talk about this, these are like, these races are like double the length of the official iRacing races. And usually those are restricted to 20, 24 cars, something like that. We've got 35 on the grid today, and the top 21 cars are within 1 second of pole, which means you've got huge drafts coming from the front of this field, and this is going to make this first lap is going to be really critical to get clean air and find your way through without hopefully collecting anyone or being collected by anyone. So let's set this grid and get this race going.
Yeah, let's get up and rolling for the 5th round of this championship. The checkered flag's still out in this qualifying session, waiting for, I believe, Antonio Reese, who we did not see out on track earlier on for the Formula Fords. He is presently running here in the Spec Racer Ford, so still a little bit longer until we can actually get into that session. But want to... I wouldn't necessarily say lower the tone, just talk about the community here from the other weekend warriors. Stevie mentioned it earlier on, right at the end of that Formula Ford broadcast. And here in the Spec Racer Fords, you'll be seeing a little logo all throughout this race, which will have a heart with it, and for Izzy. Eric Luke, the other sponsor of today's broadcast, one of his friends is running in a upcoming IMSA mini endurance race, and one of his family friends' daughters, 2-year-old Izzy, was diagnosed with cancer not terribly long ago. So we have a lot of those logos out here on the racetrack. Hopefully Izzy and her family are tuning in to this broadcast, and we wish them nothing but the best as that journey continues on, and hope everything will go well there. But at the moment, here in this race, ready to get things up and rolling for the 5th round of this championship, and we are now moving into the race session. So let's get to this 40-minute long race underway by taking a look at the starting grid for it. It's going to be Felix Samoa starting from the pole. Elise Pleva will join him on the front row. We have Maurizio Nazelli in the number 44 starting in 3rd. Next is Solal Shuttley in 4th. James Walker will start in P5. Jason Green will start in 6th. We have Kane Lasky in 7th. Jason Perry in P8. Starting in 9th is going to be your Masters pole sitter, Jeff Fritcher. Leonard Geese will start in P10. We have Eric Luke, the sponsor of today's broadcast, in P11. Joachim Ozbeck in 12th. Starting this race in P13 is going to be, get that WD-40 up here, it's going to be Antonio Reese. Dan Witzak will start in 24th. In 14th, second tries to charm there. We have Trent Kramer starting in 15th, and Andre Favini rounding out our first half of the field.
Yep. Chris Murakami starts in 17th. Josh Wilkie, our old buddy, starts in 18th. Claudio Gardini starts in 19th. Adam Bradshaw rounds out the top 20. Alan DeGassis will start in 21st. Tom Graywell in 22nd. Good morning to Tom. Aid Allen starts in 23rd. Flavio Andalo starts in 24th. Paulo Brim starts in 25th. Zippy Salmon starts in P26. Ken Poulin starts in 27th. Brad Cathcart in 28th. Michelle Lynn in 29th. Stevie Ray, our boss, starts in P30. Paul Jackson in P31. Ian Gibson in 32nd. Joshua Flores in 33rd. Michelle Viglini starts in 34th. And Darren Keene starts in final starting position in P35.
And so those are going to be your starters here for the 5th round of the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors. Looking to see a lot of stuff heading into this race. That gravel that we saw strewn across the racetrack in that qualifying session earlier on. Come time for the end of this 40-minute long race, I have a feeling that certain parts of the circuit are going to more resemble rally special stage than anything else. Having to worry about this circuit, which isn't the longest in the world, 2.31 miles back when the Formula One Grand Prix of the Pacific Grand Prix was hosted here. It was always such a short lap. Here in the Spec Racer Fords, definitely a short lap at just a tick over a minute 40 for most of these racers. But here we go. That pace car come down pit lane. The field now in the hands of our pole sitter, waiting for that green flag to come out, which it has now. And the drivers are on their way, heading down that start-finish straightaway off into turn number 1. Jumping out to a very early lead is going to be Felix Samoes, Elise Pleva, Maurizio Nazelli, all battling hard. Look at Solal Shutwi battling with Kane Lasky as well down into turn number 1. Some 2 and 3 wide action all throughout this field. These racers want to get off to the best start that they possibly can, but want to avoid those gravel traps at all costs. I think someone did that, I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, was the 909 of Tom Bradwell, having an off-track excursion coming out of turn number 1. Nothing too bad there, but as it stands heading down into turn number 1, it is going to be your pole sitter, Felix Samoes, leading them off, coming onto that back straightaway.
Yeah, so far so good, as we saw just not a really clean start. Didn't have anybody drop off. We had a couple guys drop back. Dan Witzak's down 6 positions since the start of the race, but for the most part, everybody is pretty well contained. And we see a 3 wide coming down into the hairpin there, and it looks like somebody may have got shuffled out. Might have been this Jason Perry, and that was Antonio Reese coming through.
I am not sure how they managed to get through that clean, if I'm being completely honest. 3 wide at the hairpin, from my own experience running around here, usually goes about as well as trying to...
Yep.
Synonym is escaping me. It's like trying to pick up an anvil while your hands are covered in Vaseline. That may be the most disgusting phrase I've ever said in my entire time doing iRacing broadcasting. I will now swiftly and abruptly move on. Leading your way down into the last corner, turn number 11, will be Felix Samoes, the reigning champion here from the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors. Hasn't had a fantastic season up to this point, but as we head into round number 5, looking to have a good running here at Okayama. Bit of an issue with the timing. Felix Samoes is still your race leader. Joshua Flores, Boshell, Viglini, and Darren Kuhn a little bit farther in the back. But as it stands presently, Samoes is still your race leader and looking to dust himself off after a rather disappointing race meeting at Long Beach 1 week ago, celebrating his 5-year anniversary here on the Spec Racer Fords and getting a good anniversary gift with a black flag in the early stages.
Big wreck. I think that's Jason Perry again. Looks like Trenton Kramer's involved in that as well. And we'll have to get a replay on that. We just caught the end of it. Did not see how that all started. But as you can see, we've got two cars with the missing front ends. I believe that was, again, Perry and Kramer coming through. Was that turn 4?
I believe that was heading off through the Moss S of turn number 3. They came to blows on corner entry and stacked it up big time. Rizzi and Nazelli and all that drama has been able to take the race lead from Felix Samoes. That was a 3-car incident. Perry having to tow back to the pits, and the front clip of that race car was stuck in the fence. I thought it was going to get fired at the camera and we'd have to buy a new one, but no. Here was it all. A big stack up on corner exits. And look at that Kramer. Nothing he could have done in the midst of all that. I think Eric Luke was involved in all that action as well, and Perry, you can see the front end of that race car stuck in the fence. Holy cow, I'm pretty sure you could generate world's amount of energy just hooking up some sensors to that bumper as it was stuck in the fence having a spaz attack.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could just see that was, I'm going to have to ask Antonio the next time I get a chance to talk to him. That was a very much of a NASCAR bump and run that he just put on Jeff Fritcher there, and just a little bump coming through the S's and managed to get Fritcher loose and was able to make it to the inside. But obviously Fritcher trying to catch the car, stacked everybody else up, and nowhere for the likes of Eric Luke and Jason Perry and others, nowhere for them to go.
I'm still caught up on that front clip of the race car stuck in the fence. That was absolutely unbelievable. But in all of that, Maritza Nazelli has been able to take the race lead. Felix Samoes slotted in P2. Alace Pleva, Solal Shutby, Kane Lasky rounding out your top 5 at the present moment. It's a 6-car pack at the front of this field with some very talented racers throughout it. So we're going to take a look in a moment involving Aid Allen in the 666 car heading down into the hairpin.
Yep, and we got Aid there in the white topped with green trim. The Welch Dragon on the side, and yep, just a little pit maneuver there, and stacks up the whole pack. Ooh, and then more traffic right there as other cars are getting involved, and you can just see the battle on there because we had such a tight qualifying run. Everybody's pretty close to the same pace, so you can see the draft, putting cars in awkward positions, and we're struggling a little bit just trying to get everybody around the corners.
And it all started off with contact between Alan DeGassis and Tom Gradwell, and you can actually know it was Bradshaw. Tom Gradwell was involved in the second bit of drama that eventually sent Alan DeGassis around. That was heading through the always real pain in the butt turn number 6 Revolver. That kind of fitting for the name, because every single time I go through there, I usually spin with the same velocity of a revolving door. As we see Stevie Ray having a moment. Oh, he didn't hit anybody.
No, that was nice. It just collision avoidance, spins the car coming out of that corner, and is able to kind of shoot the gap between the two cars trying to get back on track, and nobody hits anybody, and they all can continue on.
Yeah, and outside of a couple of incidents here in the early stages, it has been rather clean Knowing my luck, though, I probably just jinxed it. We're going to see a 15-car pileup hang down into turn number 9 in a couple of moments' time. Side-by-side racing, though, down that back straightaway, off into the hairpin. Felix Samoa, Maritza, and Zelli giving us a good battle to talk about. The north end of the field, Samoa as our pole sitter, retaking the race lead. Zelli slotted in P2. LA's play Vasola, Shutwy, Kane Lasky, Jason Green still involved in this pack. Got side-by-side fight, maybe got flare-up involving Antonio Reese and Jeff Fischer. They're running nose-to-tail in the Masters category, currently 7th and 8th at the present moment. So looking like we got battles all throughout the field. And here's Leonard Geese, our current front runner in Spec 2.
Yep, Leonard's hanging in there and doing a great job running P9 and kind of inherited that lead from Eric Luke. And you can see Leonard also running the 4Izzy logo on the front of the car as we're on board here with Josh Wilkie getting a little bump draft down the straightaway. And car looking to the inside, and just, I think I saw that earlier, pretty much the same thing as two cars trying to occupy one space does not work, and you see the little pit maneuver into the corner. We'll see that again, I'm sure, as that long straight back straight. Ooh, hang on to it. So he's got it stopped. Geese. Yeah, Leonard Geese with a little, I'm trying to find Geese puns to make. It's just not working today. And now the tires are hot, and he's losing the car again. So you're going to have to take it easy a little bit there, Leonard, as the rest of the flock travels by. And, sorry. And so he's going to wait very wisely to just wait and let everybody get through. He'll reset, fall to the back of the pack, and continue on. But he's going to have to get those tires cooled off a little bit before he can start pushing the corners again.
And Geese having a really bad time of things. I'll tell you what, it's unfortunate. He's a great guy, though, overall. Not really had the opportunity to have a chat with him, but would love to have a conversation with him in the not-too-far-off future. The last time I had an experience with Geese, I got chased up onto a park bench, so I do want to rewrite history there as looking at some racing going on a little bit farther in the mid-pack. Here's Michelle Lynn involved in the battle. Darren Cohn, who we saw start a little bit farther in the back, and a very nice-looking Alpine paint scheme. If my paint schemes are not deceiving me, I think that may actually be accurate to what's going on out there. My trading paint's doing me well for the first time in about 16 years.
There you go. And just, hey, the difference between me and you're obviously a Philadelphia kid, and I grew up in the country, so the Goose is the world's greatest security guard. Will always alert you when somebody comes into your area, and will attack if necessary. So they're just fantastic animals, as long as you feed them. That being said, we'll continue on with this battle up to the front of the field. As you can see, this pack hasn't really separated very much. They're still running pretty much nose to tail, and you can see the draft working taking effect on these straightaways where these cars are just really getting close to each other. You can see the look here. Eric Luke coming down to the inside around Murakami, makes that move stick in the hairpin and continues on out and down the back straight. Is going to try and see if he can defend against Murakami, who's going to have the draft coming this time down the straightaway.
And here we go, and maybe a fight down into the hairpin of turn number 5. Will we see Murakami go for it? No, it looks like he's going to back out. I can see a little bit of damage on the front end of that race car of Eric Luke. Hopefully not going to slow him down too badly. And one more thing to raise about the whole Goose story that I shared earlier on. I can't even necessarily blame the geese, I should say, not blame the Goose. That would have been a rather interesting Top Gun reference there. The thing is, I will continue to raise this as someone who's lived in the city of Philadelphia for all 20 years. They've been on planet Earth. I can assure you that the animals we have walking around the parks and just the streets of the city of Philadelphia are more wild than the lions we have in the zoo. And I can imagine the geese were feeling rather threatened many moons ago when this happened. This was probably about 10, 11, or maybe even 12 years ago at this point. I am still mildly traumatized by it. But I can't even blame the geese for being scared of me in a situation like that. They'll just be enjoying their day in the park, floating around, eating some random stuff that they can find in the woods, and they just see all of a sudden a 4-foot tall trash bag full of lard and bright orange clothes walk up to them, they're gonna get scared. So that's part of the reason why I don't go outside too much, too busy broadcasting. But that explains a lot. I should probably go out and touch some grass. Nizelli, though, holding on to the race lead of Lace Plava. Maybe going to try and get a move done on him, potentially down into the hairpin. He's looking on that inside line, but not close enough to get that move done. The back straightaway down into the hairpin to turn 5. And for clarity's sakes, it is literally called hairpin. So that is the actual corner name. We are not just calling it the hairpin for simplicity's sake. That will be the premier overtaking opportunity from the drop of the green flag all the way through to the fall of the checkered.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the premier premier overtake spot is just a heavy braking down into Revolver. And you can just see that the cars are just going to jockey back and forth. And it's going to be like this pretty much for the entire race. We'll see if the pit stop separates these cars out a bit. As you can see, the cars behind, they're out of the front draft, but obviously there's still opportunities. If you work together, if you can find a drafting partner, you can make up a few tenths here and there and put yourself back up toward the front.
And still a lot of time left to go in the race for these drivers to try and make up as many spots as they can. Felix Samoa saying the 5th lap of the race as Antonio Reese making a very early call to come down pit lane in the 914 car. That's an interesting one from Reese.
It is, but it feels like a good strategy. Undercut. You get the draft off the cars in front. There's plenty of opportunities to make your way around slower traffic because it is a fairly wide circuit. So you can go 2 or 3 wide in a lot of places. Obviously, there are some places you can't. But you can go 2 or 3 wide in a lot of the places. And, undercut's not a bad call here. And obviously, Antonio's very experienced running these cars at this track. So he probably had that game plan in place before he even set foot out here today.
Some side-by-side racing going on involving Jeff Fritscher and Joachim Osbeck down into turn number 5. Osbeck putting in a pretty good performance at the moment, finds himself in 7th. He's the first car out of that front pack, and I was going to raise this talking about that front pack fight not terribly long ago. All of those drivers, I'm going to hold off on that point, is side-by-side between the 555 and the 666 down into turn number 5 and about to enter turn number 6 in a couple of moments' time with the 555 in front of the 666. But getting back to the point I was going to raise at the front of the field. You look at these drivers involved in this pack. Maritza Nazelli, Lace Plava, Felix Samoa, Solal Kane Lasky, and Jason Green, all very, very talented racers. I think they all have a good shot to get the job done as we see a replay of this racing involving Ada Allen in the 666 and the spin heading down into turn number 6 in the process of all that.
Yeah, I've done that a few times. And there's the contact from the car driving through, which stinks. Obviously, that looks like that might be some suspension damage. He hit him right on the left front tire. So hopefully he can continue on, but he's going to probably have to come in a little bit earlier than he may have wanted to get his fast repair and go ahead and fill up the tank. And it's this is all the guys up front are capable of winning this race. So it wouldn't surprise me if any one of those guys ended up winning. As you see the Jeff Fritscher here with Joachim Osbeck, and Jeff just working his way around, taking that draft to using it to his advantage, making the move down into Revolver, and he's going to hold that position. Looks like Osbeck's looking to see if he can make a move back around. No such luck. Jeff hangs on to it and continues on, running in P7, leading the Masters class.
And it's looking pretty good for Fritscher as it stands at the present moment. Up 2 spots from where he started in this race, holding on to the Masters lead. As you said, the next Masters driver is Adam Bradshaw down in P15 at the present moment. So pretty good advantage for Fritscher to have in his back pockets. Won 2 races in a row at Magny Court and Spa for races number 2 and 3 of this season. Looking to return to victory lane. And in the process of all of that, maybe keeping on strong with the other pace that he's shown in those 2 wins. He was able to finish in the top 10 on both of those racers. And to anyone who hasn't tuned into one of these Weekend Warrior shows before, these drivers are scored based off of their overall finishing position. P7 points are exactly the same for a Spec 1, Spec 2, or Masters competitor, and really shows that even though these drivers have this class structure between Spec 1 drivers with higher rating than the Spec 2 and the Masters drivers, which are 60 years of age or over, you still have that interclass battling that'll go on all throughout these races.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's not really a matter. Obviously, you want to win your class, but you want to finish as high as possible. That's the real goal. Is just pass as many cars as you can on the track, finish as high as you can. You want maximum points for your effort here. And so far, Jeff Richard's doing a great job. Obviously, won a couple of races already, or won a couple of class. Got a couple of class wins already this season. So, looking to add another one to it to try and move up that ladder in the Masters category championship battle.
So a long way left to go from this season. Haven't hit the halfway mark just yet, but we will be doing that for the next round of this season. I think there we go. I was about to say we got a brief little glimpse of the 709 car of Eric Luke, currently your Spec 2 class leader. Eric Luke has been on a tear as of recent in that category. Had 3 poles in a row in Spec 2 leading into this race. Leonard Geese going to end that streak at 3, but is also on a streak of 3 wins in a row. He's finished P5 twice and 7th last time out at Long Beach. Currently running at 11th presently, so not the result that he has had in the past couple of weeks, but still a Spec 2 win is a Spec 2 win, and he has a pretty good amount of time in his back pocket as well between himself and Daniel Salmon, who's currently P2 of the Spec 2 racers.
Yeah, he's got about a 10-second gap between him and Salmon. Zippy having a great run, though, running P14. But yeah, Eric, obviously he's got lots of wins in class already, but P11 is a little different. He's usually up somewhere around the top 5 when the race is all said and done. So it's a little further down, but once again, still leading his class, still going to get maximum points for his group. So he'll just, I'm sure he'll just keep charging forward and trying to pick up positions as he can. Obviously, we saw pit stops on order. Which will be coming here in short order, I would think. Once again, and we'll see what happens. Obviously, we talked about this in the FF race, how the shorter track made for kind of a more open pit window. I think this one's probably going to be a little bit smaller of a pit window because of the size of the track and how much speed they're driving with during the course of the lap. So, we'll get about to the 30-minute mark or so. I think everybody will be pitted by then.
Another thing to raise, talking about the draft, obviously super important to get moves done in a race here in the Spec Racer Fords. You're going to see drivers use that draft quite a lot throughout this season, but you also have the other side of it as well, getting better fuel numbers, which we've seen in past races thus far this season, Charles, and just really in the history of the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors. Just Weekend Warriors, period, for that matter. You can make or break your race with a good run through the pits. Flashing our minds back to earlier on this afternoon for the race at Knock Hill. It was a battle between Edward Buchanan and Ian Joyner right towards the end of that race to decide the winner. Buchanan, even to his own admission, said in the post-race interview, I'd probably do a lot better in these races if I can nail down those pit stops. Super important in these Weekend Warriors events to have a good strategy call and be able to exercise and execute those pit stops as best as you can. Felix Samoa's trying to get a move done on a lace flava and does so successfully, heading down that back straightaway off into turn number 5. The game of leapfrog still very much on between those drivers in the top 6, made up with drivers who all have a very good shot to do well here. Yeah, the pit stop is important. There's hidden seconds there in pit entry and pit exit that you have to take advantage of, especially pit entry. And we haven't talked about this, but this is a pretty difficult pit entry as pit entries go, because you're kind of arcing yourself around in the final couple of corners on the pit lane. So you have to kind of maximize your pace through there in a very tight section of the track. You see it there on the inside, and we've been watching these cars as one of those as Sol Al-Shutwi comes in for the pit stop. One of the names that we mentioned as in that group that is not taking the lead yet. He's just kind of taking it easy, which bodes well for him, is Jason Green. Obviously, great at fuel saving, great at maximizing his pits. And so he's just sitting in the back riding in this draft, and I'm sure he's saving tons of fuel back there doing it. Again, some very good fuel numbers. I wouldn't say it's something that you'd see in a very highly fuel efficient car, but for a race car, not too bad. That would be a rather fun, boring stat, whichever way. See, I would find it interesting personally. What car on the iRacing platform has the best fuel mileage? You know, I say that. I guess by a technicality, it would be the Porsche Mission R since that's electric, so it would be burning 0 miles.
Zero
to the
gasoline,
gallon.
yes.
Yeah, 0 gasoline per mile. So I guess technically it would be that of the gas-powered vehicles. Though I wonder what would have the best fuel mileage.
Well, I don't know about fuel mileage, but just for as far as time, you know, obviously I've done a lot of, with my team, we do a lot of multi-class racing, and you know, we do have some guys that like driving that TCR, and I think you can go an hour and a half on a tank in the TCR. And so it's obviously not the fastest car in iRacing, but I think it, as far as fuel mileage, it does pretty well for itself.
Yeah, I could believe that. Honestly, we had some experience covering TCRs with the Right Esports Club Racing League, which was broadcasted on Wednesdays here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. Still got the action from the Sim Racers Group Intermediate F4 Championship, by the way. So despite the fact that season has officially wrapped up as of a couple of weeks ago, still got some action to look forward to here on Wednesdays on Slow Motion Broadcasting. But those TCRs, I feel like I should drive them a little bit more because they are just very unique race cars on the iRacing platform. Pretty much the only ones that are front-wheel drive in the service, unless they bring in the the Nissan LM Nismo from about 10 years ago at this point.
Right.
I always loved that car, and driving it around in the old Forza Motorsports games, super fun experience. Even running around the Patriot course at VIR, which I think I described during the Formula V broadcast yesterday as essentially being a very angry chicken nugget. That was always a rather fun experience. So who knows? Maybe we'll have some more front-wheel drive cars in the sim in the not too far off future. That's Zanzelli going for a dive down to turn number 5 on some Moaz. That's not going to work. Alace Pleva now in the race lead. But Zanzelli, he's a veteran of the series along with some Moaz. But even veterans not immune to making mistakes down into turn number 5. Outbraking yourself at the end of that pack straight away. Something that is not immune to anybody. I have done it, and I've had my rounds of bowling through there, and I'm surprised I didn't get a protest for how much of a stupid maneuver that was that I did many moons ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, he tried to make that move on Samoa's, but then Pleva up there at the front kind of stopped his momentum. He had to kind of brake a little bit harder than he probably wanted to, and it pushed him out wide, so Samoa was able to recapture that position. And Pleva obviously has won races in the Spec Racer as well, so no slouch sitting up there in the front. As you see, I'm just kind of looking back there at Fritcher and O-Spec. I'm trying to see are they making up time to this lead group? They're only about 3.5 seconds off of Jason Green. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. If they can work together, with these guys battling up front, we always say that the up front battles will invite other cars up front, up to the front of the grid. So maybe these guys might be able to get involved before this is all said and done.
I'm thinking at the present moment, you can see it's that gap is slowly but surely growing between Jeff Fritcher and Jason Green. It is slowly but surely ticking up, but ticking up nonetheless. So it is growing, albeit marginally, lap after lap. But hey, those small little incremental gains can definitely add up between now and the checkered flag. This was a 6-car pack, now 5 after the other pit stop that we saw from Solal Shutwee, who finds himself in P14 at the present moment. I'm curious here, Guido, if we can maybe load up a graphic seeing the difference between Al Shutwee and Samoaz in terms of how that gap has developed as of recent. 30.5 seconds is the gap between those racers, and Al Shutwee spent 43.9 seconds down in the pits. He finds himself in clean air at the moment. Solo Al Shutwee, maybe a driver we have to talk about in terms of contending for the race win here at Okayama.
Maybe so. He's, as you said, he's in clean air, which means he can run his max pace by himself. So he's not getting any draft benefits. I've also been kind of keeping an eye on Antonio Reese. It's 43 seconds off the lead. He's already made his pit stop early. I don't know. He's been running really good times. He's right up there with the with the top 10 as far as his lap times are concerned. So maybe that's one of those that we'll have to watch as well as the pit cycle continues on here, and may shake things up a bit up at the top of the field.
Yeah, the strategy content always so intriguing to me in these Weekend Warriors races. I mean, looking back at the Knock Hill Formula Ford race that we had earlier on this afternoon as well, that had some pretty compelling strategy to it, and I have a feeling we may be cooking one up yet again. Here is the gap and how it's developed as of recent. So I believe that would indicate that the gap has actually gone ever so slightly the same. So I think it's gone down somewhat potentially. But regardless, actually no. Looking through it's just staying the same. Comparing it to lap 10 when he was still involved in that pack, I was like, huh, that looks like numbers for sure. You could tell I wasn't great with math class as a kid, but I was looking at all that, still maintaining about the same, which. Not a big swing at the fence, so not going to be too fantastic, but not too bad either, as 3 of them making that breakaway to come into the pits. That is Felix Samoas, Kane Lasky, and Maurizio Nazelli coming in.
Yep, and that leaves Pleva and Green out on the track, and Green is going to work to the end outside. I'm not sure if he's looking for a move or not. Yeah, he is, and they're going to end up battling through the corner. Nope. Green gets cleared, so he's going to take that position. He's going to take over the lead of the race. That means that these guys will come in if the others are coming in now. These guys will be in probably the next 2 laps or so, and we'll see how all this shakes out as they're on their way out of the pits. As we're on board here with Zippy Salmon, and what we got to see here, going to see. Oh, just a little too much back on throttle. He tried to correct it and get the car straightened back out. So a little spin-a-rooney there for Zippy, and he's back going in the right direction again. And now we got Stevie Ray working his way down the straightaway here. Once again, also in the hairpin, and just a little too much speed. So a little overcooking there from Stevie. And, yep, and more replays here with Adam Bradshaw. Out of Revolver into 7 and 8 here.
And
just and then a little contact there from behind. I think that was that the 555 that went through.
Paulo Brema.
Yeah, Paulo Brema. So as we see Green coming in, Pleva staying out, so Green's going to come in and make his stop.
Yeah, so that is going to be another lap out there on the circuit for Elise Pleva in that 46 entry. He'll be all by his lonesome as he still stays out there. Looking back and following Felix Samoas, Maurizio Nazelli, and Kane Lasky, they are now broken up a bit by Solal Shutwi. He didn't get a big gain through that pit cycle, but he didn't necessarily lose anything either. That 132 car still involved in that battle, and getting some flashbacks to the round at Zolder last year here for the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors. I'm trying to remember who was even on that broadcast with me. Jason Green exiting pit lane. He's going to be right behind Solal Shutwi, right in front of Maurizio Nazelli, with a 319 of Michelle Vaglini, the lapped car, involved in all of that action. I think it may have been Mr. Wilkie who was on the broadcast with me that day at Zolder, where it was Solal Shutwi leading, heading his way through the final chicane, picked up a slowdown, and then lost the race in the final couple of feet, as that Salmon not going for the smartest move in the world, heading down right towards the tail end of the circuit into turn number 8 of Redmond.
Yeah,
actually, sorry, that's turn 7 of Piper.
Yeah, and that's we've seen that a bunch of times already. It's just 2 cars with different lines trying to go into the apex of the corner, and it just ends up going wrong for both of them. And you see the spin and the contact and the spin occur as we see Pleva now coming in to take his pit stop. And we'll see where he jumps out. We've got Wilkie and Geese are the only other 2 cars that haven't pitted yet.
And there is Elise Pleva now making that call to come down pit lane. Wilkie, will he follow in suit? Yes, he will. So that is going to be your P2 runner at the present moment, coming down into the pits. am immediately breaking my promise. We were having a chat with Mr. Wilkie between these two shows, and I promised not to mention him like I did last week, so he would not get struck by a falling anvil. I think he did in the earlier stages, but if he runs into some more trouble between now and the end of this race, if you'd like my job here at Slow Motion Broadcasting, why not write to us at Alace Pleva exiting the pits, and he's going to find himself getting shuffled back down a little bit. Will find himself in P5, only in front of Kane Lasky, who did not have a good run through the pits. Looking at his time compared to, we'll pick out the quickest time down the pits, which was actually from Felix Samoes of that 6-car pack. Samoes, 42.0 seconds down pit lane and 11.3 seconds stopped in the pit stall. Looking at Kane Lasky, on the other hand, 48.5 seconds down pit lane and 16.3 in the pit stall. That's a big difference.
Yeah, it is indeed. And yeah, just looking at Pleva's time, he had the shortest stoppage time of the entire group, 10.6 seconds. But he was 2.5 seconds slower than Samoa's overall. So that's those hidden seconds I was talking about on pit entry, where you have to be on it, and you have to push the car even on pit entry to get to make sure you don't lose time during your pit stop. And that's exactly what cost Pleva during that.
Yeah, so Alace Pleva, the last of the drivers to come down into the pits, is the second to last of those drivers involved in that top 6 fight. Here's a moment for Ken Poulin in the 414 car, and contact being made. That right there on the inside of him, I think was, couldn't actually see the, I believe that was Leonard Geese on the inside of him, and a big hip check hanging through turn 1.
Yeah, Geese wishes he had a horn. He could have honked at him. As he was exiting the pits there. Yeah, just, obviously you have to be aware of everything going on, and obviously Geese coming out of the pits right there to the inside of the track, and you see the contact made as we see Stevie Ray looping the car yet again into and out of the hairpin, and Stevie said, I think I've had enough of this track for today.
I'm going to put that entirely on myself, because I put the pressure on him saying, hey, think you have a good shot to win it, and that is not that has aged about as well as milk in the Nevada sun. As spinning around is Joshua Flores, and he had some assistance in the form of Trent Kramer on the inside, giving him the old heave ho heading through turn at number 5. Flores gonna get looped back around in the right direction in the 518 car, but a bit of assistance sending him into a spin.
Yeah, it's another one of those. It's spotters trying to tell you, hey, there's a car there and you're not paying attention, or your spotter's not working, which we had yesterday in our race. So, it's one of those that you just, obviously car there and you're turning into a corner, and the next thing you know, you're sideways.
As we jump back to the front of the field and follow these two, Felix Samoes and Solau Shutwe, now covered by practically nothing at the north end of the field. I shared this story about the last season's race at Zolder, where it was Solau Shutwe leading coming out of the final series of corners, but a last-second slowdown caused him to lose that race to Felix Samoes. This is the first time we've really seen these two involved in a battle thus far this year, but oh no, that was the worst timing for me to mention that. Solau Shutwe with a pretty nasty slowdown, I believe, coming out of the final corner down that start-finish straightaway. Am I Nostradamus? Am I just a jackass? That was the best timing in the world.
Yeah, well, it's the best timing for you, not necessarily for him. So that gap's now up to 1.1 seconds. That's going to put Naselli right at the edge of draft range. So if Naselli can get a little bit of a whiff of draft, he's going to bring himself and Green up to the back of Al Shutwe, and that's going to make that a 3-car battle. And Al Shutwe is going to do everything he can to see if he can hang on to Samoa's draft and try and close that gap. And it looks like it's working. He's down about a tenth and a half over the course of that straightaway.
That may have been the most immediate commentator's jinx I have ever had. I've had some quick ones. Funnily enough, I believe one of them you can catch on the YouTube Shorts here on the SMB YouTube channel. That right there, though, I feel like I'm probably going to clip that into a YouTube Short right after we're said and done for this broadcast. That was the best and worst thing that I think I've ever done in my entire time doing broadcasting. So Congratulations to me. Here's a fight involving Chris Murakami and Dan Witzag. They may get tussling between now and the end of this race. Here's a 4-car pack involving Eric Luke, Joachim Osbeck, Claudio Gardini, and Antonio Reese. Those cars running nose to tail, occupying the final spots inside the top 10 and one spot outside of it. Eric Luke, your current leader in the Spec 2 class, has a rather big gap to himself and Daniel Salmon for that Spec 2 lead, and looking pretty good for him at the moment.
Yeah, having a good run, back up to P8 inside the top 10, and he's looking to just close this out with 4 minutes to go in the race.
Really looking at how the end of this race is going to shake out. Will we see a fight flare up between Samoas and Al Shutwi? He's closed up that gap yet again. If these drivers start to tussle too much, though, we have to look at the likes of Maurizio Nazelli, Jason Green, probably not a last play. We'll just say Nazelli and Green. No discredit to Play Van Lasky, but that's just too big of a gap to surmount between now and the end of this race without any sort of outside intervention. Side-by-side racing between Al Shutwi and Samoa Zo down into turn 5. The game of leapfrog very much on between these two, and Al Shutwi got to jump in front.
Yeah, I think maybe Samoa's maybe lift a little bit. He did not want to battle through Revolver there. He just said, you know what, he's got the run. I'll let him have the position. I'll come back on him a little bit later down the road. With a couple of laps still to go, because obviously both these guys probably realize that if they start battling through corners, they're going to have Naselli and Green on them in no time flat. So they don't want to be doing that. As we see Flores around again, holds it off the wall, simple spin coming out of the corner, too much throttle, and we're going to get another view of this, or is this a little curb? Little curb, too much curb into the gravel. And
Survey says down into turn number 4 of Atwood Curve. Still running strong at the present moment.
Yep.
Just an off-track excursion coming out of turn number 2 of Williams. I think there may have been some drama a little bit later on in the lap for Flores.
Yeah.
This is right towards the back half of the circuit.
Yeah,
and
there
it is coming out of turn number 8. That is Redmond. And Flores going to make his tires red hot after that spin.
Yeah, absolutely. Just, obviously a little bit too much. The curb there will unsettle the car, and you get onto the throttle a little too much, and you'll lose the rear, which is exactly what happened. And so now we're back up front here with Al Shutwi, Samoas, Naselli, and Green just kind of hanging back there, and we're going to have a white flag at the line.
Yeah, and these drivers going to find that white flag involved in a hornet's nest. Al Shutwi and Samoas. There's going to be a battle of the titans between these two. Some of the best here in the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors. Al Shutwi and Samoas both looking to grab the win at the end of this race, and they have a very good shot to do it. Separated by 0.3 of a second, hang down into turn number 8 for the second to last time in this 40-minute long race. Jeff Fritcher is your leader in the Masters category. It's a big gap between himself and Antonio Reese, who's at the tail end of this pack. Actually, no longer at the tail end, as he got moved on to Joachim Osbeck, but was involved in that battle involving Eric Luke, your current leader in Spec 2. But here is the situation. Felix Samoas looking to get his second win on this season here for season 2 of 2025. Won at Magny-Cours earlier on, looking to do the same yet again at another old F1 track. Meanwhile, for Sol Al Shutwi, he's looking to get his first win of this season, and that would be a rather good feat. A nice little feather to have in his cap in the 132 car. This is going to be a fight not down to the end of this race. I have a feeling it's going to be decided with that final run down that back straightaway off into turn number 5. You can see these drivers taking a whole lot of liberties with the track limits off throughout the first half of this final lap. I wonder if we're going to have some drama heading down at the very end of this race. We saw a dive earlier on from these racers. Didn't really work out too well then involving Maurizio Nazelli. He's a little bit too far back involved in this battle to really have a say in it. He's got to fight with himself and Jason Green. But look at this, swapping sides down that back straightaway off into turn 5. Samoas definitely rattled Shutwi's cage a little bit. You can see he had to make a last-second decision to swap back to the outside as Samoas looked to dive down the inside. That was not close enough for Samoas. I wonder if he was just trying to throw him off his game a little bit. Maybe go for a move in the final few corners. That's not going to help out his cause, though. Running wide coming out of Piper Bend of turn 7. That's a Plava hitting the wall in the back. A shot there. That's not going to help him out. He finds himself in P5. Not really involved in 9 battles at the present moment, but given his Fabricator or something to have some nightmares about at the front of the field, though. Shutwi leading their way down into turn number 10 for the last time in this race. Still Shutwi yet to grab a win thus far in this season. He had to fight to try and get it done here at Okayama, but coming out of that final corner for the last time, Sola Shutwi in the 132 car going to grab the checkered flag here at Okayama. Felix Samoa is so close, but no cigar to his second victory this season. Nizelli going to round out your podium in third. We have Jason Green finishing in fourth, Plava in fifth. Jeff Fritcher going to win it in the Masters category, finishing this race in 7th. That'll be his 3rd Masters win of this season. And Eric Luke going to cross that start-finish line to win in Spec 2.
Yeah, great race, and you could just see the draft playing havoc with these guys, and it ended up being, the pit stop made the difference, I think, in this race is, maximizing your time, or minimizing your time, I should say, in the pits. And that was the key to Al Shutwi getting the race victory.
Still waiting for some more drivers to cross the start-finish line a little bit farther in the back of the pack. That was Flavio Andallo and James Walker crossing the line. Here's Tom Gradwell in the 909 car going to finish in at P18 in front of his fellow Aussie, the former Brad Cathcart. Trent Kramer in the 20 car going to fittingly finish in 20th. But well done to Solal Shutwi grabbing his first win of this season. That's going to now make it 5 races in a row in that Spec 2 category with a different winner. Nizelli, Samoas, Green, Marco Panero, and Solal Shutwi now the winners thus far in Spec 1. It's the only class that we have now with a lot of different winners. 5 different winners in 5 separate races. Holy cow.
Yeah, absolutely. As we see Darren Keene come across the line, the last of our finishers here coming across now, the 319 back there, Michelle Viglini finishing up. I haven't said this, but Viglini just amazing. He runs very little official races, but he's here just almost every week out here just competing and driving, running his race. So we're seeing
Oh, there we go. I was waiting for it. I was waiting for Jason Green.
Oh, here we go.
Back there. Oh my God! Someone just. Oh,
that was
wow.
Zippy Salmon full speed coming in, and I think that was Trenton Kramer that took the brunt of that.
That, I think, was the 863, I believe, potentially. I'm not even sure with the amount of scraping on some of these cars. I'm shocked we can even make out some of the car numbers on them. That's the 893, I should say. Sorry, of Ian Gibson. My dyslexia affecting me at the best time. Look at that, jumping up into the air. I'm waiting for someone to ballpark at that fence on the outside of the runoff area in turn 5 is rather short. I wonder if someone could either ballpark it or maybe hop across the fence, hop across a small little gap between turn 5 and turn number 9, and just continue on, as there's a moment for Lace Plava. I saw him smack the wall coming out of turn 7 at the end of this race, and that was what did it for him.
Yeah, just pushed a little too hard and tried to get over and just carried into the grass, and just a little slight kiss of the wall there. I was able to continue and finish the race in 5th. We see Zippy around again. He's going to get contacted by anybody. He's backing up. Very wisely done. Getting out of the racing line there and continues on.
And speaking of the racing line, you can catch that on Tuesday nights over on the Ray Esports YouTube channel. That was such a softball. Oh my good Lord.
That was nice.
Ever the opportunist I am for a plug about as slick as 80 grit sandpaper. But with that taken care of, let's move into let's actually have anyone waiting up there in the interview waiting area. So I think potentially, Charles, I will ask you about of our class winners in this race here, which one do you think impressed you the most? Was it our Masters winner of Fritcher, our Spec 2 winner of Eric Luke, continuing on that now 4-race win streak, or was it Solal Shutwi, again, the deal done to win his first race of the season?
Well, I think I want to. I was originally going to say Eric Luke because of that incident at the very beginning of the race. He was able to come back and get back in the top 10 and win the class. But anytime you get your first win in a series, so we'll give it to Al Shutweek this race, and as the guy that finally gets the W, and so we're very happy for that, and I'm sure he's happy as well. And we'll give a little shout out to Brad Cathcart, the hard charger of the race, up 9 positions to finish 19th.
And some very good drives up and down the field. Drivers putting on some good races week in and week out. You always love to see it. And the next race of the season going to be another good one. This Spec Racer Ford schedule we have real interesting. We have some returning tracks and some ones we haven't really visited before. Next time out, we're going to be running at Donington Park to round off the month of April. So that's going to be a pretty fun one. And looking through tracks like the Legacy Phoenix Road Course. I remember doing a Spec Racer Ford official race there like 5 times in 1 week, and granted I had nightmares about that track after leaving it, but I still enjoyed it quite a lot. But with all that squared away, Charles, I think we have some drivers waiting up there in the interview waiting area, so I will pass it off to you and let you pick who you want to have a chat with.
Well, I'm going to talk with Jason Green. I'll let you take the Eric Luke. I talked with him last week, so we'll spread that around a little bit. So we'll bring Jason in here and give him a chat. Congrats, P4. Looked like you had a pretty good strategy there. Looked like, as I said, I've seen you kind of ride around the back of that front draft and just save fuel. And it got you a couple positions at the end, but not quite up to the front the way you wanted.
Yeah, I didn't quite have the pace today to battle for a win or anything. So yeah, just use fuel saving to get myself in it. Try to pick up any mistakes out there. But yeah, just didn't quite have the pace out there.
Yeah. So I guess the one change that we've had with our racing with the Spec Racers, I guess, is the debris system. So did that have any effect? Because we saw a lot of gravel being thrown on the track. Did that make some of the corners a little more challenging than others?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So we've got the new tire model as well, or the new-ish tire model. So that coupled with the gravel made it the very, very low grip track today. Even more so. It was low grip during the week during the officials, but it was even more so today. It was very, very challenging out there. And even towards the end of quali, it was pretty much impossible to improve because of the combination of the track temp and the gravel. I was just talking to Eric about that. So yeah, it was definitely very, very challenging out there.
Yeah, I definitely mentioned the track temp at the beginning of the races. It seems like that's just a staple of Okayama. It seems like this track is just always hot. Doesn't matter when we come here.
Yeah, unless it's underwater.
Yeah, unless it's underwater. Exactly right. All right, Jason, congratulations on your 4th place finish, and we'll let you give any thanks or shout-outs before you go.
Yep, shout out to Eric Luke, and shout out to Izzy and her family. I'll let Eric talk about that, but yeah, I'm glad we were able to, or I hope we were able to bring a little bit of joy to them, because they're going through a hard time right now. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I'll let Eric talk about that.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Congratulations. We'll see you next week.
Yep.
And that right there was Jason Green having a chat with us. And as he mentioned, we'll now be able to bring Eric Luke here into the commentary booth. The Spec 2 winner for what feels like the 15th bajillion week in a row. Eric, welcome into the booth. Well done on your 4th Spec 2 win in a row. Happy to talk us through this race here at Okayama.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Happy Easter. Very, very interesting start to the race. We can start back in qualifying. I was running low 40s without a draft in qualifying or in practice, and we get to qualifying, and I couldn't even break a 40. So I qualified way down to where I was expecting to be, and it started in 11th. A couple laps in, we got bunched up coming out of 3. And I had a little bump on the car in front of me. Forgive me, I can't remember who it was. And it kind of snapped my car to the right a little bit. And I got hit from behind, and chaos ensued, cats and dogs living together, the whole 9 yards. And just try to put my head down and finish as high as I can, and had a couple good battles along the way.
And grabbing your 4th Spec 2 win in a row as well. That's got to feel good in terms of 5 races, 4 for 5 overall. I'm pretty sure you weren't here for the first race of the season. So 4 for 4 in the races thus far. That's got to feel sweet.
It does feel pretty good. In fairness, I did have a conversation with Ray and said, listen, I seem to be winning. Put me in Spec 1 next season. I know there's iRating limits and things like that. And truth be told, I don't run a lot of officials. I prefer to run the league series because you get to know the people around you. You get to know the tendencies. You kind of build a friendship and a bond with them. And it just seems to be a lot more enjoyable running the leagues than the officials. So I have requested the bump, and hopefully I can get faster to stay with these guys up front.
Well, I will say, if you want to have a chat with anyone who recently got a bump up from Spec 2 to Spec 1, you may have to have a chat with Mr. Joshua Wilkie and listen to how many falling anvils he's been struck by, and then maybe look into some high-quality Acme grade umbrellas to protect you from all of that. But quick little serious note here. We talked about it earlier on in this broadcast, the 4 Izzy logos that he decided to run with, and a lot of the other drivers in this race running them all around. I want to pass the floor off to you to speak about that.
I appreciate it, gentlemen. There's a beautiful 2-year-old little girl in Indiana. She's going through some medical issues right now, and her family is facing an impossible scenario, and I just want to say hi to that beautiful little girl Izzy, and let her family know that they are in my hearts and in my thoughts.
Absolutely, man. It's always it usually in the world of sim racing, it's always so divided with talk about tire models, damage models. Is iRacing going in the right direction? But being a part of something like this, seeing a community unite together is
absolutely. And I do want to thank the league and the drivers who participated and put that logo on. I know it's just a very simple, small gesture, but I know it means a lot to Izzy and to the family. And thank you, gentlemen, for putting the logo up on the broadcast as well. I did see that, and it's very humbling to have that kind of support from a giant group of strangers. So thank you.
I like the way you put that, a giant group of strangers. That's pretty fun. My parents always taught me stranger danger and all that stuff, and now I basically make a living talking about strangers on the internet. So funny how the world works at the end of all of it. But Eric, we'll let you go and celebrate the Spec 2 win, your 4th win in a row as well. After one more thing, is there anybody you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Just hello to Izzy, and a big thanks to Cloud Valve Company. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
And thank you as well for making today's broadcast here on Slow Motion Broadcasting possible. And awesome to see you grabbing another win, and excited to see you back out on the track for the rest of the season.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And that right there was Eric Luke, who I believe you'll be able to catch on the Racing Line podcast in a couple of weeks' time as well. So look forward to that. But Charles, before we move off into fully closing off the show here, I think we'll touch on the results at the end of it all here from round number 5 of the Spec Racing Forward Weekend Warriors season. It's Solal Shuttley grabbing his first win. Felix Samoas came oh so close to his second, but it was 0.4 of a second, 0.47 seconds being the gap to himself and Solal Shuttley at the end of this race. We have Maritza Nazelli running at our overall podium in 3rd. Jason Green will finish in 4th, Elise Pleva in 5th. We have Kane Lasky in 6th, Jeff Fritzscher in 7th, grabbing a 3rd Masters win for him. We have Eric Luke in 8th, Antonio Reese in 9th, Joachim Osbeck finishes in 10th. Andre Fivini will finish in P11. Claudio Gardini will finish in 12th. We have Chris Murakami finishing in 13th, Dan Witzak in 14th, Josh Wilkie, Flavio Andallo, James Walker, and Tom Gradwell running at our first half of the field.
Yep, Brad Cathcart finished in 19th. Trent Kramer rounds off the top 20. Paulo Brim, 21st. Alan DeGassis, 22nd. Michelle Lynn, 23rd. Ken Poulin, 24th. Zippy Salmon in 25th. Paul Jackson 26th, Ian Gibson 27th, Adam Bradshaw 28th, Leonard Geese 29th, Darren Keenan 30th, Michelle Baglini in 31st, Josh Flores in 32nd, Stevie Ray in 33rd, 8 Allen in 34th, and I believe Jason Perry rounds out our 35 car field for today's race.
So that's how it's going to shake out at the end of this 5th round of the championship here at Okayama. Looking forward to the next round of the season. That's going to be at Donington Park. Wasn't able to be a part of that Donington Park broadcast for last season here for the Spec Racer Fords, but in all that, Jorg Mani was able to grab an overall win as a Masters competitor. So Donington, despite being a somewhat straightforward racetrack, the races there usually can be anything but.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as me, as far as I'm concerned as a driver, I hate Donington. That being said, it is a really good track, classic British track. So we're going to get some good racing from there. Obviously, some good elevation, twists and turns, a couple of hairpins, and we'll wrap it all up with a 40-minute race. And looking forward to it because it's always good racing when it's the Weekend Warriors.
Yeah, that is certainly true. And so a lot of stuff to look forward to here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. Gives you a good reason to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of the racing action. Next time you'll be able to see us go live will be from the American Muscle Series. The final race of their season will be coming to you from Laguna Seca this upcoming Tuesday at 8:10 p.m. Actually, no, I believe it's 9:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Got that mixed up with XSLR, which you will not see this Sunday. However, they will be returning next week. The Sim Racers Group F4 Championship continues on their season at Phillip Island this upcoming Wednesday. Then come time for the weekend, we have got you booked with the Formula Vs running at Lebanon, the Formula Fords running at Zandvoort, and the Spec Racer Fords running at Donington Park. XSLR, meanwhile, will wrap up their dirt road course season at Crandon and officially hit the halfway mark for Season 9 of the Cross Series League Racing Championship. But as for this broadcast today, for the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors, round number 5 at Okayama, I think that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Maunz, Charles Boshell joining me in the commentary booth, and Guido Marzucchi doing a wonderful job working on the cameras in the virtual production hauler, I'd say thank you also very much for watching this broadcast here on Slow Motion Broadcasting today, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future.